Otherwise, I'll just leave that record button. Oh, okay. All right, well, Bozz, I'll turn it over to you. So take it away.
Thank you very much. So hello, my name is Bozz. I'd like to open by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional Yidinji custodians of the land upon which this presentation is being given. I pay my respects to the elders both past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that the sovereignty of these lands was never ceded and that I live and work upon stolen land. I recently completed a performative autoethnography for my MA thesis at Antioch University that was inspired by the work of Spry and of Harrison Holman Jones. I am, among other things, a magician. Magic is a hobby of mine that throughout the course of my MA program became the method through which I carried out my thesis project. So I was thinking about bubbles. I was thinking about the stages that a bubble goes through, and I came to the conclusion that there were three distinct stages. There's the forming of the bubble, there's a stage where the bubble has formed, and then of course there is the bursting of the bubble. I thought about this and how well it relates to the moment of wonder that's shared by people who experience a magic trick together. There's a building of connection between two people or more if there's a larger audience. And there's being inside this bubble and feeling this connection. And then of course there's the moment where the trick is over and the moment's now a memory, the bubble's burst. So I'm going to begin by trying to elicit a moment of wonder together for all of us through magic. And to do that, I'm going to have to tilt my screen down thusly. So, Nicola.
Yes.
I need you to do me a solid. I'm going to riffle down the cards like this, and whenever you feel like it, you just tell me when to stop.
And stop.
There?
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to be your card right there. Everyone can hopefully see that.
Yep.
One of you at least, I'm sure, can remember it. We're going to put the card on top and just cut it into the deck. I'll snap my fingers, and if I am at all magical, then something should have happened to one card and only one card in the deck.
What?
You can see that one of them's turned blue, which is, yep, good reaction, but it's only really cool if it's your card.
Nine of clubs.
9 of clubs? That one
Yes.
right there? Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. But as I said, I'm a magician. This is kind of what I do. So, well, I won't tell you how, but I can maybe show you. So we'll put your card right there, and we'll do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to riffle down. You're going to tell me when to stop, whenever you feel like it.
Stop.
That?
Yep.
All right. That's your card. Everybody can see it. Remember it. Same thing. Goes on top, gets cut into the middle of the deck. I snap my fingers, and one card and only one card changes color. So we'll go through, find that card. I think I did that a bit quickly. Hang on, let's do it this way. Huh. Can anyone see a blue card? Anyone?
At the front.
This, the one at the front.
This one here. That's right, because only one card can change color. What was your card the second time?
2 of clubs? 2, yeah, I think. Yes, very nice.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, for your help. So, magic is a way of experiencing moments of wonder. These moments of wonder are shared between people, and they break down barriers between people. Barriers such as language, sexuality, ethnicity, ability or disability, or socioeconomic status. Just 2 or more, in this case, people, human beings, sharing that moment together. I'm going to share with you a story from Phillips and Bunda of my research project. As Phillips and Bunda say, through storing, we come to live, breathe, and feel deep, penetrating understandings of identity and place. For my thesis, I ran a project over 6 months at my local homeless shelter in southeast Queensland. where I went in and interacted with the users of that service. In an informal setting, I'd chat with them and perform magic, and we'd build these connections forged through these shared moments of wonder. After each session, which were first fortnightly, then weekly, I'd record audio journaling from which I framed my autoethnography. My primary reason for being there was to bring a moment of levity, a smile, maybe a laugh, into the day of some of the most vulnerable members of our society. Magic was my method of achieving this. This was important because I was hoping to have explored and gained a better understanding of myself through my evolving views on people experiencing homelessness, moving from looking at to being with through magic. It was especially poignant because I ran this project from September 2020 until March 2021, when I myself was dancing that fine line between homed and homeless. The pandemic has affected all of us in different ways, and one of the effects that it's had on me and my family has been enforcing transience upon us. The project took an even more deeply personal aspect that I wasn't expecting when I proposed the project back in late 2019. Pre-COVID times, if anyone can remember what that was like. I was looking at how magic can be used to forge connections between people, but what I actually came across was the potential for healing that a shared moment of wonder can have. It was a real revelation for me to come across this. It was in my penultimate session of running this project where I came in and I had an encounter with one of the spiritual healers who was there. There's a whole group of these spiritual healers who had set themselves up in a different part of the facility and offer services like Reiki and tarot readings, among other things. I'd never really interacted with them because that sort of thing sits really far outside my own kind of personal zone of truth. The following is a direct excerpt from my autoethnography. So at this penultimate session, I walked in and this man planted himself in front of me and said, "Bozz, we need to talk. You're just coming in here and doing your magic and leaving things all over the place." And I was thinking, what's he talking about? I haven't been leaving anything. I always pick up after myself. And he says, "It's your aura. We need to fix your aura." And I was like, my aura. Okay, nothing important. Good, excellent. So I said to him, "Well, okay, what would you like me to do?" And he said, "After you've done your session, come and see me and we'll realign your aura." I agreed, and it was rather reluctant on my part because, as I said, this whole aspect of life is very much outside my zone of truth. So I went and he did this Reiki healing on me. And I'm sure at least some of you are familiar with what that entails. I certainly wasn't. He had this crystal that he ran over my body about 3 centimeters distance from my skin, which finished with a big whoosh up the top of my head. Then he said, "Right, your aura's realigned. How do you feel?" I'm a very honest person, but I didn't want to offend, so I very truthfully said, "Well, I don't feel any worse." Then he said something that turned everything on its head for me. He said, "You know, you come here and you do your magic with your cards. This is my magic. We each use our own magic to achieve the same end." And I was dumbfounded. It was something that had never occurred to me before. I sat down and we started talking. He said to me, "Why do you do what you do when you come here and do your magic?" I said, "Because magic is a way of taking people out of themselves even for a moment. It allows us to step outside whatever shit we might be dealing with, whatever problems we're enduring, and experience a moment of wonder. And I think the people who come here really need that, as we all do from time to time." He said, "I do exactly the same thing." He said, "The things that we all do are different means to the same end of allowing people to, as you said, step outside themselves." I wasn't expecting that magic could have a potential healing aspect. I just hoped to entertain, to give people a moment of play, of wonder. The real punchline is that it took literally the entire project for me to come across this idea, and it was fed to me directly by someone with whom I'd had very little interaction up to that point. The moment that he said to me, "That's your magic, this is my magic," everything changed. It was a fundamental shift in my outlook and in my reality that cannot be overstated. The source of this revelation was just as amazing. The entire project was a lesson on continually needing to adapt and on following what Bunda says, relearning. this was a definite moment of needing to relearn. These holistic practitioners were so far outside my own personal zone of truth that I hadn't even really registered that they were there, much less that what they were doing and what I was doing might be two sides of the same coin. That's the end of the excerpt. It was so fascinating to dive into that and follow that line of research, because I very quickly came to the conclusion that it wasn't just healing for the person being performed to, it was healing for me as well. It was immensely healing for me to go in and have these shared moments of wonder with people, and I was in a space where I really needed some healing. And so magic was my method of not only forging connections with people on a human-to-human level, it was a way of exercising some of my own demons by bringing happiness and wonder to others through these bubbles, through these shared moments of wonder. What I'm really doing as a magician is exploring ways to connect to people as humans. What I didn't explore in my thesis was why magic works. Why magic works is currently being investigated in the academic field by researchers such as Bagianski and Kuhn out of Goldsmiths in London. And they are doing great work, and it's work that I'm following quite avidly. But for me, why magic works isn't where my own research interest lies. Magic does work. It has an effect on our brains that's a measurable phenomenon. It works. What I'm interested in is what we can get from it. It's more than just entertainment. And in saying just entertainment, entertainment is so important. These bubbles of being entertained and being the one doing the entertaining and sharing it together, it's just beautiful. And further research into the healing potential of these moments of wonder is what I'd like to do next. I'm currently looking for a scholarship to do a PhD to explore this with a lot more depth than I was able to go into in my MA program. So I'd like to leave you all now with another moment, another bubble together. I'm going to tell you a story of the first time I ever witnessed a magic trick being performed in front of my eyes. And to do that, I need to tilt down again and move that out of the way. So when I was 20 years old, I lived in San Francisco, and I was walking along Haight-Ashbury one day, 20 years old. I thought I was quite a worldly fellow back then. And there was this busker kind of guy, and he said, step right up and win some money. I said, I'd like to win some money, and I stepped right up. And I said, what's the game? And he said, the game's 3-card Monty. You ever heard of 3-card Monty? And I said, no, how does it work? And he says, well, it works like this. I have a joker, I have another joker, and I have the ace of spades. He says, the ace of spades is the money card. You follow the ace of spades, and I'll give you $1. You can't tell me where it is, you owe me $1. And I said, all right, cool, let's play. So he says, right, here's the ace of spades on top. Then he very simply put it on the bottom and said, where's the ace of spades? And I thought to myself, this is the easiest dollar I'm ever going to make. The ace of spades is on the bottom. He says, well, that's a joker on the bottom. You owe me $1. Try again. And I said, on the top. He said, nope, joker on the top. Try again. And I said, well, it must be in the middle. He said, well, no, that's where the joker is. And that's $3 you owe me. At this point, he said, look, I feel a bit sorry for you. You've obviously never done this before. I tell you what, I'll give you a chance to win some money back. Can you tell me where I can find a joker? And I said, yeah, no problem. I saw a joker on the bottom. He said, no, that's where I put the ace right at the start, remember? Try again. And I said, well, I definitely saw a joker on top. He said, no, that's the ace of spades on top. Try again. Well, it must be in the middle then, I said, getting a bit frustrated. He goes, no, it's the ace of spades. And I'm a bit angry at this point. I said, well, you've obviously got more than 3 cards and you're scamming me. He says, 1 card, 2 card, 3 cards. That's $7 you owe me. But I tell you what, he says, I'm going to give you one more chance. We'll go double or nothing. Here's a joker and here's an ace. If you can tell me what card I have in my hand, you walk away, you owe me nothing. You get it wrong, you owe me $15. So what card did I say? I probably said the joker, because he did tell me at the start that he had 2 jokers. It doesn't really matter what card I said, because I sure as hell didn't say that I had the 9 of diamonds, did I? So he walked away with my money. I walked away a little bit wiser and with a fascination for magic that lasts to this day and shows no signs of abating. And thank you all very much.
Thanks so much. That's terrific.
Thanks, Bozz. That was lovely.
Good.
That was so cool.
Yeah. Thank you. I think if it's all right with folks, we'll just segue into the next presentation and the next, just because I've said this before today. I'm a terrible timekeeper. I want to make sure we have plenty of time at the end for comments and questions, but please pop them into the chat while we're rolling along. So that means I'm going to do a little switcheroo. Alys, Dawne, and Devina, you'll be up next.
Okay. Alys is just changing places with Bozz. And I'm going to take the opportunity to share my screen. Yeah, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So now I can't see if Alys is with us.
I am.
Ah.
I am.
Just like magic.
Just like magic. Thank you.
Okay, let's go then.
Togetherness, affect, art making, and auto theory. We acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional owners of the land from which we speak. We acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Alys, on the land of the Yidiji people.
Dawne, on the land of the Camaragal people.
And Devina in Celtic Cornwall.
Today, we invite you into an effective technological space on the Miro board, dancing and storying with you through an auto-theoretical lens, resonating with McKinley's drawings and writing as a kind of storyline, heartlines, autoethnography. Together, we three are creating a special kind of belonging with our images and words.
We have come together on the page.
Calling modes of becoming with creativity, as Harris says.
Our artworks, our desires, our experiences, our words.
Becoming on the Miro board.
Forming skin as container attachments.
Bubbling together, we share, we express.
Crossing wide open spaces.
And we question.
Where would we be?
Without art.
Without technology.
We begin as
three artists together, yet far apart.
Troubling the impact of COVID-19.
marooned in Queensland during a pandemic. The border closed, our flight cancelled, a baby to care for. My life has slowed down. I feel the itch to draw.
In creative agency, Dan Harris writes, I think you have to be incredibly open to creativity and innovative in how you utilise tech. We do need digital creativity tools and methods, but at the same time, basic human skills, how to listen, how to be respectful, and how to be humble. This is true of our bubble. We negotiate the intersection of our imagination, sharing our images, our words on the page of the Miro board, responding respectfully and listening to each other through Zoom.
Ginny loves the birdies. We awaken before the kookaburras. They laugh and greet us and the day.
Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, Mary, Mary, king of the bushes he. Laugh, kookaburra gay, your life must be. Singing on Girl Guide Camp.
Reassuring in the chaos. Lino cutting on soft rubber, exploring my relationship with the birdies. An unsettled life. A more than human connection of parenthood, the lino, the birds, and the trees, all new to me as a settler colonial on this ancient stolen land, which I currently uneasily inhabit.
Relying on technology, Nelson writes about auto theory, how to explain in a culture frantic for resolution that sometimes the shit stays messy. Meanwhile, thanks to COVID-19, my PhD fieldwork is a bust. Locked down in Victoria, locked down in New South Wales, locked down in Australia, unable to get to the UK. I need to get back to Victoria and I need to get to Epsom and Cornwall to complete my fieldwork. Devina, hopefully if I can get to the UK, we can meet in person.
I wonder about Dawne's disrupted plans. I marvel that another Venn diagram could be drawn that geographically connects us, Epsom and Cornwall. At 18, attending Epsom Art College, fearful of stepping out of my comfort zone. Now, in Cornwall, walking on the beach with the red dog and giving thanks to the later life choices that brought me here. Later, he lies on his back, legs held high, surrendered to sleep. I rub his chest and belly, smell his burnt popcorn-scented paws.
Skin, vessels, emptiness, bubbles have been burst.
I have been mending the impossible feather hand vessels that hold emptiness. This links to bubble containers, so delicate, trying to hold the ineffable, finding ways to express global transient amnesia.
Becoming alive on the page creatively, using technology as a form of skin as container as we express ourselves through focusing on products and refocusing on relationships collaboratively in our bubble. As Harris notes, people use what they have to hand. Sometimes it's stories, sometimes it's material wealth, sometimes it's belonging.
And what floats to my mind are these images that I took in 2014 outside La Sagrada Familia, Barcelona, visiting my eldest nephew. I had overcome my fear of flying then, but don't want to contemplate airports and the enclosed space of planes sharing air. Claustrophobia has returned.
Innocence lost, separated from loved ones.
Weeping and raging for the Afghan women and girls and their lost futures.
Singularly, yet together, sharing, realising, creativity ensures our survival.
I've sat with Devina's writing for days, thinking of Afghanistan, of the women, the terror, and how they've become invisible overnight. Embodying grief, or living with grief, as you wrote in your PhD, Devina.
I transpose in my mind intimate objects, talked about in Harrison Holman Jones's Massive and Microscopic, for evocative objects, thinking of Turkle. My evocative object is two tatters, two shirt cuffs from Chris's favourite shirts. These shirts I ripped and tied to the fence at Blackrock on the Welsh side of the River Severn to be washed by the tide twice a day for the project Tying the Threads. I found the tatters in a bedroom drawer and had forgotten how I was unable to completely let go of the shirts. I'm revisiting this artwork geographically and emotionally.
Panning to myself and thinking as a woman and mother during this pandemic about issues of identity, of cultural expectations and norms on body size, what is beauty, what is acceptable parenting, and fuck those who critique others. I've wanted to draw myself from a photo taken of my daughter and I, naked and nursing, in the bathroom of the emergency Airbnb we were staying in May 2020. What do you see? Bottom, breasts, baby, boobing? I've attached a rough sketch drawn with a biro on lined paper, following McKinley's argument that drawing became a way for me to speak, that which I did not have the words to say.
I look at the drawing of yourself, Alys, with being with Jenny, with these questions in mind. I see the two of you bubbling together, mother and daughter, not being limited by cultural expectations, nor being limited by self or other. Your bubble forming a mother-daughter skinner's container, becoming a holding space for experience, a safe space for you and Jenny, one that reinforces feelings of aliveness and existence, blending skin to skin, inscribing bodies that are completely entangled with the world.
I love the visual relationship I see and sense. the rooted solidity between Alys's drawing and Dawne's cyanotype.
Connecting through art beyond words.
McKinley reminds us of the risky business of sharing our drawings, as we all have a keen sense of what makes art good, what makes it bad, and a strong idea of whether, in fact, we can call something art at all.
The textures of the land cross-pollinate Dawne's paintings, especially when viewed side by side with the photos. There is an urgency and almost violence in the scored, pitted surface, an addition and subtraction, a breaking down, a breaking through.
Devina talks of the power of the effective space created by sharing images.
Does the sharing of images allow us to be vulnerable, show vulnerability, enter into a different relationship, less certain? The viewers bring their own stories to an image shared.
So, on Miro, I play with the line key to see if there's a way to begin to create an entanglement, copying the images, then moving them around, placing them differently. Virtual visual connections remind me of a time when we were physically together in the same place. Devina, with you at Amadown in the UK, looking down joyously at all the artful inquiry on the floor. Dawne, with you in Murwillumbah, Australia, your art making filling the studio and the smell of the paints permeating the air.
Incorporating the auto-theoretical impulse.
But what does this really mean in language that makes sense to us all, in crafting and making artful inquiry?
Using auto-theory, we find a way to cross the divide, entangling our art making with our words and our words with our art making, connecting theory from Holman, Jones and Harris with an effective sense of something happening, speaking unspoken words of our bodies and the landscape, visualizing something that has altered something to make something else, combining our art and our words with those of Harris, making new arguments and engaging with old material at the intersections of imagination, sociality, theory, and cultural politics in order to harness our effective relationships and collaborative processes as we understand it at this place and time and awareness. It is a co-production with each other.
Looking, experiencing difference, mending, making anew, nourishing our souls.
My Tether project looks again and reflects on loss, ritual, what we can and cannot, do and don't let go of in these pandemic times. I've started with a series of Polaroids I took recently at the site of the missing barbed wire fence. 8 years of tide and time have worked their linear magic on this experience of loss.
Sharing our art making, our words. What matters here matters. That women's bodies need to be seen, free from fear, shame, judgment, a normalization of breast, chest feeding, a love for the curve and haunch that carries that body around, the jiggle that laughs, the laugh that jiggles. My sketch does not show the texture, colour and warmth that Dawne's images do, so I hold Dawne's images and Devina's photos within me as I type, a meshwork of my sketch with both of your images, references and writings, an entanglement of the thing thought.
Filling the page, relieving our heartache, relying on technology, responding, collaborating, combining our art and our words with literature, relying on Google Drive for our assemblages, entangling our images and our words on the Miro board, visualising a meta view of our effective entanglement, becoming bubbles of thoughts and images, open vessels, bubbles popping.
This all got me thinking, with theory, with the work of the Sisters Holding Space, a group of Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australian women making art and thinking with theory together, including Tracy Bunder's work on weaving baskets. I too have been making baskets of grasses found from places as I travel and live in Australia. As I weave, I realise I'm engaging in Phillips and Bunder's idea of storying, thinking of country, place and the flora through which my privileged, settler, colonial, artistic, academic lens, yet still mesmerised by the idea of these tangled belongings. I wonder what in our technological artistic bubble we are embodying as tangled belongings. Maybe viewing the basket as an empty vessel with agency, or the shirt sleeves fluttering on the barbed wire fence from the images above as ancestries displaced. What goes in the basket? What leaches out? What is inside this bubble that we are making together on our Miro board?
Connecting, sharing effective tensions and lost dreams.
We are showing rather than writing our loss, displacement, and through metaphor, image, and rituals of making, remaking, mending, and creating anew, as Ahmed says, theory can do more the closer it gets to the skin.
Questioning privilege, revealing invisibility, social margins, and togetherness. As Jogos and Wallace suggest, some things are better done with others. We say auto theory is one of them. So here we juggle our three artists' work through an auto theoretical lens.
Sharing our relationship, becoming present on the page and through Zoom and Miro.
Skin to skin, just like these entangled roots, reinforcing the liveliness of the landscape, holding space for the landscape to exist. Like you, Alys, with Ginny, and like us, Alys, Devina, and Dawne, bubbling together, becoming material objects, crossing the technological divide between us, bringing us closer together through our art making, our worlding.
Questioning, where would we be?
Without art.
Without technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Lovely, thank you.
Love that. I recognize that that Miro boards can be private spaces, but if you wanted to lock it and send a link so we can have a tour around, that would be, I'd be really keen to be able to zoom in. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, how about if we throw to Karissa?
Thank you. I feel so privileged to be coming next and have been grouped in with such amazing presentations so far. It's wonderful to be here with you all today. I'm coming from the stolen lands of the Boonwurrung, where sovereignty has never been ceded, and I'd like to acknowledge them before I begin. Always was, always will be. You can all hear me okay? Wonderful, thank you, thank you. So the content notes for my presentation today include fears, phobias, nightmares, climate anxiety, bushfires, sleep difficulties, sleep paralysis, and children's television from the 90s. My presentation today I have loosely labeled Man-Made Madness, the Seal, the Sleep, and the Swimming Pool. A quote to begin with. The ancient Greeks envisaged sleep to be Hypnos, the twin brother of death, Thanatos. Unlike his twin, Hypnos was considered a friend of mortals, a healer of body and mind. From a book by Bill Hayes. I, like so many others on this planet, have struggled to sleep for the past 2 years. It began during the fires. Me in my Victorian shit chic shop top rental on stolen Boonwurrung country, ignoring the blood orange smoke soaked sunset, opting instead to focus on carefully blocking up the original condition sash window frames with damp towels and frantically Googling how to close and seal ancient iron fireplace fixtures, of which there are 3 in this apartment. Inner city suburban Melbourne. Lucky to be this close in, inhaling sweet summer air putrid with half a continent's worth of bushfire smoke. Still, it's worse elsewhere. And yet I worry about my sweet rescue hound and her sensitive, lengthy snoot. Do they make N95s to fit dogs, let alone a greyhound? Not yet. I cannot bring myself to think about any other animals. The end times were upon us, are upon us now. Sleep usually comes easily, with ease, unlike so much else in my anxious existence. A central component of my mental health routine, a deep and undying love, a part of my identity, a pleasure, sleep. I did sleep, but for the first time in my life, I experienced the opposite of with ease, less falling, more tripping haphazardly into restlessness. Awake, staring at our dilapidated but charming pressed tin ceiling. I was glad my partner could sleep as we sweated beside one another, unable to open the windows due to the toxic, monstrous cloud that enveloped the city. I am left in the quiet night with my thoughts. I think to myself, practically, which of these thoughts have always kept me awake? And which of these wake me? Which of these wake me even in my waking? I ponder my fears. What am I afraid of? Can I list fears, rank them? Counting fears is the less popular alternative to counting sheep. 1. O gatekeeper. The eldritch monsters, the nightmare canon of my childhood, were, to say the least, an odd bunch. A headless grandpa, a skeleton sitting on a toilet, a cartoon supercomputer, each uniquely horrifying despite stringently being from books or television shows aimed at children my age. It is only logical that my earliest adversary was also personified directly from television. The first monster I appropriated, the original incarnation of my fear, was a chimera of ungodly assimilation, the seal. In 1989, Wolfgang the Muppet was introduced to Sesame Street. A friend of Big Bird's, Wolfgang was a non-verbal, though highly literate seal pup. Voiced by Kevin Clash, Wolfgang communicated somewhat hysterically to his verbal counterparts in seal-like barks and howls. I was terrified by the relentless noise he made, despite understanding the narrative that little Wolfgang was merely a fish enthusiast who couldn't ask directly for what he needed. This rerun aired one morning in 1994 or maybe 95. I couldn't have been more than 3.5. For years after this, my seal came at night, fiercely guarding the edges of waking and sleeping. Although Sally the seal was all Muppet, she wasn't all seal. Sally didn't have fins or a tail. Sally's short brown fur ended much where a dog's limbs would start, and protruding from these 4 places were kneeless sticks covered in Muppet-grade black fleece and ending in feet that can only be described in comparison to a ball socket on the end of a femur. 3 little felt-covered nubs. She had green eyes and purple eyelids. I don't know if this image conjures the same unease in people as it does in me, but I have no explanation for her lower half. She's a Muppet with weird feet. Sally would chase me through dreamscapes. As fast as light, I would hear her coming, barking, howling, and oofing at a distance. As night slowly turned into day, she would always appear like an aquatic rooster. Seeking and finding me wherever I was hidden away in dreamland, Sally would always ultimately pounce, weighing me down before I could escape into consciousness. If she caught me, which she almost always did, I'd be trapped for uncomfortable stretches of time, her bony Muppet body pressing into my chest. When I described this to my parents, seeking a real-world solution to this very serious problem, I was clearly being bullied. They told me to tell her to go away, stand up for myself. I tried the next night, summoning all of my dwindling toddler courage in the face of the oft-forgotten sibling of Cerberus. She flattened me. I couldn't breathe, her nose weaseling in under my arms and tickling me ferociously. I couldn't gasp, I couldn't shove. My entire body would blister with pins and needles, like burning, until I blinked my eyes awake. Sally herself was not frightening, but the thick air of intense panic that she held in tow was bone-chilling. I learned to blink my eyes, close tight, open wide, close tight, awake. Until recently, the seal was just a quirky memory. 2, the deep. I would describe myself as a lucid dreamer. It was until this recent sleeplessness I had come to understand my lucidity to be a skill, a phenomenon beyond my comprehension, but nonetheless a gift I possessed and worked hard at retaining. And in some ways, maybe out of pride, I still think that. I'd posit that to survive nightmares for 30 years, remembering every monstrous and upsetting, uncanny detail of the depths of your developing mind is quite a feat. We're in the bush. We're in a spaceship. We're in a mansion on an island. Something is chasing us, possessing us, taking us. We must understand the rules of the world and understand the enemy. We team up, we split up, usually we, always me, fighting reasonless battles, adversaries with no weaknesses. All is lost as we ultimately are consumed. Fighting impossible antagonists, trying to outsmart exploitative systems, and for me, protecting those other people at all costs. During that blistering summer in 2019, which had all come at once, ablaze with barely any warning, barely any spring, we slept as we usually do, with rain sounds playing. Living on a colonial shopping strip means that we have 4 hours a night without one of Melbourne's iconic trams tearing up the tracks outside. In summer, the sound of rain is cooling and aspirational. I thought of water. I suffer from one persisting fear that I've not been able to conquer in my waking hours. Submechanophobia is the fear of partially or fully submerged man-made objects. I don't generally suffer from this phobia, I specifically suffer from it. I developed what one could liken to a subcategory of this phobia. Ocean, lakes, and other bodies of water that formed relatively naturally do not bear the same effect. My phobia relates specifically to swimming pools. I don't have a problem with ships, oil pipes, or fountains. Ships with a swimming pool would be an exception, or a fountain with pool fittings. I don't like transnational oil pipelines, but that's for a different reason. It's not the water component either. I'm not afraid of deep water and I'm a good swimmer. I just don't want those white bits of plastic anywhere near me. And for good measure at this point, I don't care if they're submerged or not. I drew the line at attending a very cool rave in Berlin, inside an abandoned swimming pool because I'd rather chance it at the Berghain. The quintessential Aussie backyard in summer smells of burnt grass and sunscreen and sounds like cicadas and the hum of a pool filter. This is a surprisingly terrible fear to have in this country. It doesn't matter what I'm dreaming about. There will always be a swimming pool, sometimes mazes of them, like looking out onto a complicated 5-star resort in Dubai. Sometimes the brick sides of the swimming pool disappear. Most of the time they have a complicated filter system that I can't avoid. And if a dream goes badly, I fall into the water. Every night, 5-star resorts. It's utterly inhumane. I wake myself up from dreams when I get too close or unlucky enough to fall into the water. I blink my eyes, close tight, open wide, close tight, awake. 3, The Walking Dead. The summers of my childhood, although idyllic on beautiful Wurundjeri country, include concerns about bushfires. Backyard swimming pools are a firefighting tool. You can dampen your house with the water, and in some severe instances, the fighters themselves will drain your pool directly. They feel safe when fire is a threat. People have survived wildfires in swimming pools. There are 7 in-ground pools on my current inner city block. During the fires, I took a moment standing in the middle of our empty street late at night, the metal tram tracks disappearing only 100 meters into the near distance. Smoke made the overhead lights hazy. It was hot still at 11 p.m. Standing in the middle of a main road feels wrong and isn't technically legal. As I felt the anxiety of this forbidden liminality creep up my spine, I considered that some people light these fires on purpose. That night, I escape a bushfire in my dreams by intentionally jumping into a nearby pool, despite the minefield of complex plumbing my mind had invented. We'll deal with it, Kaz. You can always close your eyes. I jump in and I land in a damp, mossy hole. The pool had disappeared, and so had the fire. I remember Sally the seal fondly, and so do my parents. It wasn't until this past Tuesday when I realized I'd grown out of Sally, but Sally had never grown out of me. Sleep paralysis is more common in adolescence than childhood, but given my early acquisition of an anxiety condition, I'm not surprised by my discovery that Sally, that old muppet, was the form of my sleep paralysis demon. A companion, rough and tumble through the gates and into another place, the waking. My lucidity, a coping mechanism. Sally frightened me because sleep paralysis is frightening. Sally now reminds me of my greyhound, aptly named Boo. They share many physical characteristics: sticks for legs, a rummaging snoot, little regard for personal boundaries, and lightning speed. Sally was a lesson in resilience. Maybe not a good one, but I digress. You can always wake up from a scary dream. I am left pondering as we approach summer again, how these nightly rehearsals have strengthened my resolve and continue to fuel my waking resilience. Thank you.
Yay, beautiful.
Amazing. Woo!
Thank you.
Great. That's great. Oh, thank
Amazing.
you to everyone. Gee, what a treat this session has been. Just been on such a great vibe. Comments, thoughts, questions, you can pop them in the chat, but do people have things they want to say to each other?
I just love your writing, Karissa. It is just so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so encouraging to hear. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Bye. Thanks for stopping by. Really good to see you. Oh, just gorgeous writing from all of you, Bozz and Devina, Dawne, and Alys. I mean, and Karissa. It's just so strong. Your voices and the way that you're putting those ideas together are really compelling. Just great synthesis. I'm just yeah. I'm out of words. Anybody who knows me, that's kind of impossible. Yeah.
This was a lovely panel, I feel. I really
Yeah.
liked how the ideas bounced off each other. But I kept thinking, Karissa, of Silkies. You know, the legends of Silkies? Yeah, those seal women.
Yeah. Yes.
Because actually
Yes.
they're quite terrible. They do terrible deeds. They're not like,
Yes.
you know, they're kind of, yeah, they kind of lure people. Yeah. So that was
Yes.
what was playing in
Yes.
my mind.
I love
beautiful.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much. I'll make a note of that. That's a wonderful, wonderful connection.
And also the thing about lucid dreaming, because I lucid dream as well, is that I wake up and I always think of some kind of tool, you know, like a weapon or a thing that I take back into my dream to then use. I wonder, yeah. do you do the same?
Brilliant. Yes, very, very, very similarly, and it's changed over time as well, because this happened so young. It was you know, things from books and TV and bits and pieces. But yeah, I don't have one currently. It's disappeared, and that's what kind of where this kind of bubble of thought came from, is that I felt really at odds with my dreaming for the first time in a long time. So I love it. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Stacey, I didn't realise this was the last panel. I just want to say to Alys, Dawne, and Devina, that was such a beautiful, beautiful collaboration. It just felt like you two were in such harmony, and the way that you told the story and the way you zoomed in and out with the illustrations, it was just, I don't know what else to say, but very powerful and inspiring. That's the other thing. Thank you. And lovely, Alys, to meet your Bozz, is it? It was great. Yeah. Great to meet him.
It's great. Thank you for taking us on that tour of the Miro board. I have sort of, I'm ambivalent about the Miro, but it was just great to kind of zoom around the board and see your work together like that. Amazing, amazing. Dawne, I'm sorry, you were going to say something just then.
Oh no, it was an enjoyable process. The three of us working together, we meshed really well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love seeing that.
I was just going to say too, I really liked that board as well, the way that it held all that stuff together, you know, and it sort of, it did exactly what you were talking about, really. It's sort of, what I was hearing you talk about, or parts, in that it was sort of, it was quite watery and, you know, fluid, but it all had together. So I just thought it was a great way of putting stories sort of and presenting stories in a format like this. It was, so I really like that. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Michael.
Good to have Michael and Mig here, such beautiful artists coming to see other beautiful artists. It really makes my heart feel full. Yeah. And Bozz, just what an amazing way in to ideas of magic. I just was really, and I loved being able to see you perform today on the screen. So Zoom in a way was a great medium for that, so that we could really focus on your
Absolutely. My entire thesis was a multimedia thing with videos posted on YouTube and everything. So it's very handy to be able to actually show that, as well as say all the things that need saying as well. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And to do it live, because there is that extra performative anxiety,
absolutely.
isn't there?
Yeah, that's great. Do folks have other thoughts, comments?
I do. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed all of those presentations, and I know, and also just want to say to Karissa that I'm not sure if I always had terror of Mr. Squiggle and the creepy snail. I'm not sure if anyone else has that TV that kid in the 90s. So I understand, and I recently showed my undergrads a clip from Liftoff, if anyone remembers that, as a way to terrorise them about popular media. But I just want to also acknowledge that was really beautifully written and really well put together. That was beautifully structured. So really well done.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for being here as well. It's so good to see you.
Wow. Oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. Now, Esther, we have more panels. We have more things happening today. I want to thank all of our presenters for their beautiful work and for just getting on and really showing us what you're up to. It's great to have a peek into your work. We next up have a making session with the fabulous Craig Wood. So we're going to do some music work with Craig, and we're going to do that in the first Zoom, the main Zoom room number 1. So we'll sign out of here when we're finished, and we'll log on there. So that's happening from 5 to 6, and then we have another set of papers from 6 to 7, and then we'll be back here for the kind of fun entertainment for the evening, and hear Chris Poulos's keynote at 7, from 7 to 8. So Chris was here this morning with us, for those of us in Australia, and then he's gone to bed, and now he's going to get up again and be back with us to give us his keynote presentation. So he gets some kind of hazard pay, I think, for this.
And so does Devina, because she did the same thing.
Yes, that's right. I mean, several of you did. You were here and then slept and then came back. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. It's hard to straddle 3 time zones, but we're doing it. We're definitely doing it.
Very well. You're doing it very well. And it does feel like it's a conference that will go on forever, because I'll have another sleep as well.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thanks for those beautiful presentations. And just grab something quick, and then I'll see you all in the Zoom room with Craig.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.